Okay, so it's 12:01. I suspect that we'll probably have some more folks file in the next couple minutes, but in the interest of time, we will get started. So apologies in advance that when I show my slides, and I assume everyone here can see them, you will see the tabs at the top, and part of that is because I'm going to be going back and forth between slides and live demos. But welcome. So today we are doing an introduction to IIIF resources. I'm Caitlin Perry. I'm the Communications and Community Coordinator for the IIIF Consortium, which means I work with the rest of the IIIF staff, which when we're fully staffed is 3, right now it's 2, to support various activities within the community. So things like trainings and events. I also want to introduce Cassie Ulf. She put her little message in the meeting chat. She's going to be assisting today. So she'll be here to field questions, troubleshoot problems, and manage the chat. So if you have questions while I'm speaking, feel free to put them in the chat, and Cassie will make sure that they get answered. She's also going to help out by pasting some links into the meeting chat. You will need those during the session. So we have a pretty big group, and I assume that it's going to get bigger. So I don't think we're going to have time for a full round of introductions, but it would be helpful for everyone to introduce themselves in the chat by typing in your name and your institution. It's great to know what kinds of places we have people joining us from, whether it's libraries, archives, museums, and other groups. If you want to add why you're here or what you're looking to learn, that would be useful, and we'll try to touch on those things. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to mention before we get started is that while you don't need any particular equipment or any kind of technical knowledge to go through today's training, it is really, really helpful to open up a sticky note or a Word document or a Google Doc. We're going to be doing just a lot of copying and pasting today, and it's really helpful to have a document that serves as a scratch pad. Okay. Just as an overview, we are going to start at the absolute most basic introduction to IIIF. So would anyone, show of hands, do we have anyone who's like a complete newbie, maybe not even sure what the 3 I's stand for? Looks like no. Okay. It's fine if you do. I'm going to go over that, but we'll go through that pretty quickly, and then we'll start to get our hands dirty with some IIIF manifests and dealing with resources. Okay. So the number one thing that we have to answer before we get started here is, what is IIIF? So that acronym stands for the International Image Interoperability Framework, and you can see why we always say IIIF rather than saying that whole thing out loud. IIIF is a set of open standards that help archives, libraries, and museums host and share digitized collections, and it helps users find and interact with those collections. We'll talk about how it does that by kind of erasing boundaries between the digital collections of different institutions. But when we say IIIF, we are kind of talking about 2 things interchangeably. One, we're talking about the standardized model for presenting and annotating content such as images and AV files. And then we're also sometimes talking about the global community that develops the APIs and implements them in software. That's the long official spiel. What I would say to a group if I were stuck in an elevator is that it's a solution for sharing and managing images and metadata. Okay. So why do we need IIIF? So this diagram here is how a good deal of image delivery works, and even more so 10, 15 years ago before IIIF. So when I'm talking about image delivery, I'm speaking really broadly about not just things like photographs or paintings, things like scanned newspapers, books, AV content, maps, manuscripts, sheet music, drawings, scrolls, 3D objects. But all of those items are hosted within institutions' own servers. So here we have Ghent, Oxford, Paris, Chicago, Seville. These things could easily be Indiana University, Yale, St. Joseph's in Canada. different institutions with their own digital images. So they're all hosting their images in their own servers, managing their data in their own catalogs, and then delivering those assets on bespoke image apps or websites or curatorial displays. What's the problem with that? One, it's expensive. Everyone's reinventing the wheel and building their own infrastructure to do something that every other institution is doing on their own. And it's annoying for end users. So let's say I am researching an artist. We've got Yale people. So let's say I'm interested in developing some research on Bierstadt. So I have to go to the Yale Art Gallery to grab an image from there, and then I have to go to the National Gallery of Art, and whoever else has images that are delivered in however many image apps, and they're all working individually, and I have to get access to all their collections. So none of these collections are communicating with each other, and the end user is going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different repositories to get the information that they need. So IIIF provides a solution for this. And what it does is essentially wraps each one of these images and their metadata and pulls them out of their isolated silos by creating a uniform packaging for all of them. And the packaging is in JSON, which is a programming language. We'll look at it a little bit later, but you don't have to know anything about it. We call that wrapper the manifest. It is kind of an elegant metaphor. So much like a ship or a plane's manifest is telling a person all the crew and cargo and people who are on a ship, the manifest for a digital image is sharing all of the associated metadata and sending it across the internet. So the manifest is universally agreed upon within the IIIF community as a standard. So you can imagine the manifest as a little packaging that moves around each of these digital images. And because they are all wrapped in a uniform package, the end user can now take those images from each of those siloed repositories and then interchangeably put them in IIIF tools, websites, viewers. And we're going to go through all of those. But that's the basic mechanism here. And we'll talk a little bit about what a manifest looks like and where you can find them and what we do for them. But do we have any questions off the bat about that? Okay, so the example that I gave was about images in an institutional repository, maybe a library, an archive, or a museum. But there's lots of different contexts where people are putting their digital images in a manifest and sharing them via IIIF. So the obvious ones that you probably already know about are things like libraries and museums. But we are also seeing this being used in scientific and medical contexts. So things like radiology and MRI images are being shared within institutions using IIIF manifests. People are using these to develop teaching and educational resources, and I'll show you a whole bunch of those later. Digital humanities projects. We have an AI and machine learning group that is exploring what IIIF can do. And there are hundreds of institutions around the world that are using IIIF to make their digital images accessible. So I'll show you a map, and this is not perhaps the easiest way to see it. But each of these, each of these bullets here, each of these points is an institution that's using IIIF within their collections. So some of these are member institutions that are part of the IIIF consortium, but lots of these are just small museums, universities that are using IIIF as part of their DAM system and making their images accessible and open on the web. So this means that there's probably more IIIF compliant digital objects than you could ever hope to work with. And it's a matter of finding the things that you need and figuring out what to do with them. Okay, So here's the agenda for what we're going to cover today. So the first is finding a IIIF manifest, what it looks like, what we can do with it, and what we use it for. We're going to learn how to share a detail of a digital object using a IIIF viewer, the universal viewer. We will work on comparing 2 or 3 objects in a different IIIF viewer, Mirador. We'll take a stab at creating a virtual tour or a quiz using Exhibit, which is another IIIF tool. And then I will briefly show you how we can embed a viewer on a website. Okay, so we talked briefly about a manifest. So the manifest is that packaging in JSON code around the digital images. And what it looks like in practice is a wall of text in brackets. So this is a nice one. This is from the University of Leiden. This is what a manifest looks like. Most of them, a little bit more like this. What's great is that you don't have to touch a manifest. You don't have to touch any of this. It doesn't matter what it says in here. Someone has already determined how to package the metadata nicely and send your digital object on its way. All you need is the URL. And the URL is the key to using IIIF images and then bringing them across into different tools. Okay, so each of these URLs is a little different, but there are some tricks to telling, is the thing I'm looking at a manifest? And basically, they almost all have IIIF somewhere in the URL. And typically, they'll have manifest in there as well. So that's what it looks like. The good news is that you don't have to click through. So we have to find them, though, in practice. Okay, so how do we find a manifest? So we have an image in mind that we want to use, and we think that probably the institution uses IIIF. And while the manifest is uniform, there is no standard UX guidelines for how institutions can make it clear that there is a usable IIIF manifest. So you have to kind of be savvy to know where to look for it. So the first is to look for the logo. Okay, so now we're looking at a book in the University of Cambridge collection that's been digitized. The first thing that you can do is look for the IIIF logo, and usually they'll put them somewhere where you can see it. Oh. Here's the IIIF manifest. Again, we don't have to look at anything here. You can copy and paste this and take the manifest with you. They're not all so easy. Sometimes you have to look in the item's descriptive metadata. So I'm going to pull up another example. This is from Getty. So we have a page from an illuminated manuscript that's in the Getty's collection. I know the Getty uses IIIF, but it's a matter of finding where that manifest is. And in this case, we have to scroll all the way down into the full artwork details. It's not there yet. Down, down, down. And then at the bottom of the page here and all the rest of this information, there's a manifest URL. Sometimes it's a little more difficult. So here is an example from Brown. In this case, you may have to try to download an image to find the option of a IIIF manifest. They put it here. They also put it here. And you can grab it. So some institutions have made this really easy where you can just right click and copy, and then the URL is on your clipboard. Sometimes you'll have to open the manifest and grab it from the top here. But knowing those 3 places to look will make it easier for you to find those URLs. Okay, so once you have a manifest, what can you do with it? So the most basic thing is view an image in a viewer. So there are three big viewers within the IIIF ecosystem. The first is Universal Viewer. We're going to start with that. The other is Mirador, and the third is OpenSeaDragon. They all have things that make them have pros and cons to each one. Different institutions will make a choice about which one they want to use within their own collections based on their own purposes. We'll get to try out two of them, and you can decide which one you like using better. There are other viewers. So there are some bespoke viewers that still ingest and display IIIF manifests. There are some like Canopy and Ramp that are specific for AV resources. So Mirador doesn't support and UV don't support video, but there's a whole ecosystem of viewers out there. There are also lots of tools for digital humanities projects and educational use cases, and we'll get to those later. But the first thing we'll do is look at Universal Viewer. So if you come down here to view a IIIF manifest, and Cassie put it in the chat, I'm going to grab a manifest URL and paste it in here. And it'll show right there. So Cassie gave you the same URL that I use. This is from the University of Denver's collection. I just grabbed an image because I thought it looked interesting, pasted in, and you'll see that the image comes from the University of Denver's collection with its description, its rights information, all of the metadata moves with it. From here, we can also zoom in if we want to check out this hairstyle. And view it here. Okay. Before we move on, so I've given you the three big tips for how to find a manifest. Cassie put a link here too. This IIIF Guides is another resource that comes directly from the institutions with instructions on how to find their manifests. So if the first three don't work for you and you know that an institution has IIIF and you know that it's there and you just can't find the manifest, if you check this guide, there may be some pictures and instructions to guide you through. Okay, so now we are going to all try to find a manifest. So here I have three items. They are, in this case, three images. And I want you to pick one of them and then go to Universal Viewer, click on View IIIF Manifest, and add your item. And when you have done it, you can share the URL in the chat and we'll see if we can look at it as well. So I'll give you all a few minutes. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat and we will do our best to help. Hey, Gerard, do you mean the URL for the Universal Viewer or the Universal Viewer for the images? That's what we're going to try and do, is pick one and then see if you can find that image on the website and then find the manifest. It's a little bit of a scavenger hunt. Okay. Okay, so Sudha found two sisters on the terrace from the Art Institute of Chicago. Oh, this is the manifest. Let's see if we can put it in UV and see what we get. Okay. We have the Last Judgment. I think someone had Yale too. Let me find that. Okay, so we found all three. So how's everyone feeling about finding a manifest? Thumbs up. Okay, I see one thumbs up from Krista, and that we'll go with that. That seems good. Okay, just a second. Okay, so the next thing you can do once you've put your image in a viewer is share detail. And this is one of the most powerful things about IIIF. So here's an example. So one of the interesting things is that IIIF allows for deep zoom without you having to download an entire image and then crop and save a new image and share. So the example that we're looking at here is a Japanese tax map from 1837. And the idea here with this map is that you would read it in the round by standing in the middle. And you can see the scale when the GIF zooms out here. So for reference, the man here on the right, Wayne, is 6. I want to give him his full height here. He is 6 feet 4 inches tall, and the map is 11 by 17 feet. So it is a composite of 158 individual images, and it measures in a total 34,000 by 23,000 pixels. So you can see the benefit to having this available in IIIF, where you can zoom in. You don't have to use the resources to download this on your own computer or worry about having an image viewer that can support it. So what we're going to do is find a IIIF manifest. We're going to import it into Universal Viewer. We're going to search for an interesting detail, and then we're going to copy the URL and share it out. So I will show you how to do that. Okay. So what I have selected here is an image from the Victoria and Albert Museum. Or actually, it's a set of images. But it's a wedding dress. And there's lots of things to look at here. So let's say that I am researching Gilded Age fashion, and I want to share with my coworkers some of the detail on this dress. One thing to notice is the URL here. As I pan around and zoom in, you'll see that the URL is changing. Okay. Now, let's say I want to show this beading right here. So I zoom in to the part that's of interest to me. Share. Why doesn't it want to let me copy? Copy it, and then I will share it in the chat, but I will show you that if I open the Universal Viewer again, and paste in that URL, it's going to take me and whoever I share that URL with directly to the detail in question. Okay. So we're going to try it. So the assignment here, and there is a link, Cassie will put it in the chat, is we are going to find a parakeet in this painting by Jan van Eyck. We're going to put it into Universal Viewer, zoom in, find the parakeet, and then share it back in the chat. So let us know if you have questions. When you have the URL, share it and we'll look at it together. There he is. And what's great about sharing a detail using IIIF and with a IIIF viewer is Joshua is able to share the parakeet directly, but it's not separated from the rest of the photo or the metadata. So he can show me this parakeet, and if I say, well, what the heck else is going on in this picture, we can still zoom out. Andy, the zooming controls. So in Universal Viewer, the zooming controls are usually in the top left-hand corner. They will disappear if you're not rolling your mouse over them so that they don't impede on your view. Does that help? Okay. Do we have any other questions about zooming and sharing? Andy's still not seeing them. Andy, when you go to Universal Viewer, you're not seeing this up here? I'm going to see if Cassie can. Cassie, do you mind DMing with Andy? Okay, we'll get you sorted. Okay, do we have other questions about Universal Viewer sharing an image? No? Okay. We'll get you. Okay, so the other interesting thing that you can do just with static images is compare them. And here's a really interesting example of comparing IIIF images. So what we're looking at here is using a different viewer. It's called a curtain viewer. But this is at the lighting collection. And what they have done is layered 3 IIIF images on top of each other. So the first one is the original. There's an infrared light and an X-ray light version of the same image, and a researcher or a viewer can pan back and forth between these 3 layers as a comparison tool. So this is really exciting. We're going to do something a couple steps down to get our feet wet, but a more straightforward use case, but this is what's possible. Okay, so we've done Universal Viewer. We're going to try a different viewer called Mirador. And what you can do in Mirador is it makes it very easy to import lots of different IIIF resources and then view 1, 2, 3, 4, as many as you want at the same time. So these are the instructions. We're going to select and copy a manifest URL so you can use one from your own collection or one that we've used so far. we're going to go to the Project Mirador website and try a live demo, and I will show you how all of this works. Okay, so we'll try a live demo, and this comes already prepped with this self-portrait by Gagon and a Bodleian Library manuscript fragment here of Krishna and Radha to show you what's available. It also comes preloaded with lots of different IIIF resources if you want to play around with this. I'm going to show you how to add your own resources and then view them. Okay. So the first one I have, we'll click on Add Resource. Where it says resource location, that means your manifest, and it'll show up in your list of resources here. I'm going to grab another one. Add resource and add. So now these are in my library of resources. So the example I have here, this is a map of, this is actually like where I'm sitting over here at my house. This is a map from the American Revolution made by the Queens of a fort that was made by the Queen's Rangers, which were a loyalist team. And then here is a Sanborn insurance map of the same area. So this is in the first one is in the collection of the Presidential Library at Mount Vernon, and the second one came from the Library of Congress. So absent this viewing capacity, the only way to zoom in real close would be either to go to the digital collections at Mount Vernon and use their viewer, and then sift through the things at the Library of Congress. And I guess you could open them up in two different windows, but this makes it really simple for you to look at these two things side by side and compare. Okay. So we're going to make kind of a leap here. The first two things were really easy to do. The third thing is going to require a little more work. So what we're going to do is go to the Biblissima portal. And Biblissima is a great resource if you are interested in medieval manuscripts. It is essentially a virtual library of libraries, and there's lots of things like this within the IIIF ecosystem. There's all sorts of texts and books that were written and translated and collected and cataloged from classical antiquity through the 18th century. So even though this is one portal and it is developed by the National Library of France, it's importing IIIF resources from many, many different digital libraries. So what we're going to do is try to compare three related items. And the way that we're going to do that is pick something that might be in a medieval manuscript. And I would suggest that we go really fun here and do something like dragons. Let's do dragon, actually. You wouldn't think I had a great. Okay. So there's 908 results for dragon within the portal, and we're going to narrow it down to illuminations and decorations. Oh, and look, the first thing that pops up is an extremely rad looking dragon. Where is this from? The Bibliothèque Marizine. Okay, so we're going to pick something: dragons, flowers, Bibles, crowns, mermaids. Don't limit yourself here. Angels. We're going to pick some kind of iconographical topic, and then I'm going to ask you to take 2 or 3 different IIIF manifests, put them into Mirador, and make a collage. And if we have some people who are feeling like they are willing to unmute or share their screen, that would be a great way for us to share them after. So yeah, Cassie is putting the link. we're going to upload the resources into Mirador, and we're going to use the Biblissima portal, and Cassie can share that again, that she just did, to find the resources. There's a tip here, because the descriptions are in French and English, you might want to use things that work in both French and English to find the largest number of images. But any of these things will probably work. And if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, or you can unmute and ask it. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes. When someone is finished and maybe would like to share, if you can put that in the chat, that'll be our cue to start coming back and wrapping up. Okay, so I'm going to unchat because Joshua's question might be applicable to others. Joshua, if you can post the URL in the chat, that might help. So I don't think we have a manifest here, ooh, which is a little tricky. So let's go back. So Joshua, what did you search for? Jesus?
Yeah, infant Jesus.
Okay, that's okay. Let's look at this together. So this is my fault for not telling you that not every item here will have a IIIF manifest. So my guess is the one that you looked at probably didn't have one, but let's look at another one.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing the logo next to the text now, so I'm assuming that's what
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is worth discussing while everyone's working here. There are lots of institutions that have implemented IIIF for most or a portion of their resources, but not all of them. For something like Biblissima, it may be that they are incorporating resources from institutions that haven't incorporated IIIF. So even though they are they're including them, the institution doesn't have it. The other thing that's quite common is for places like the National Gallery or Getty that have collections that have some rights restrictions or some provenance issues. They may say, well, everything that's in the public domain, we will make available with IIIF, but these items that were a gift from such and such donor and are still within copyright, we're not going to make available IIIF. So that's a little tricky. Sometimes the place will say, yes, we use IIIF, but the truth is they use IIIF for most of the collection, but not all. Does anyone else have any problems? It may. There's a lot of things, Gerard, that we could go into that are kind of tricky. Sometimes people implement IIIF, but then they don't turn on the course headers for their resources. So then the manifests are not really that useful outside of their own collections. It's an open standard, and we can tell people how we want them to use it, but we don't control them. Okay, so John, this is a good one. So John found a manifest, but it was for an entire volume, not the page image in the search results. Okay. John, do you want to share the manifest and we'll look at it together? Okay, we can go back to John. I will answer Katie's question. So presumably those orgs would still have manifests with JSON data in the standard for their not public domain material to be used internally. Yes, they typically do. There is also a IIIF API. We're not going to go into this today because this is kind of higher level IIIF API tech business, but there is an authorization flow specification. So you can make things available via IIIF, but then also have an authorization level. So only people with credentials can access them. So that may seem kind of antithetical to the idea of making your images interoperable and open, but there are lots of use cases like things like tribal knowledge and records, things that are particularly sensitive and deal with crimes or victims where you may want to make them accessible outside of your institution, but only to people who are credentialed or authorized to access them. So there's also a way to do that. We're not going to get into it today, but it's something that if you're interested in, there are more trainings that we offer. Okay. Sorry, let's find one where we're having a problem. Okay, I'm going to use Kara's. Okay. So that's the manifest link. So one thing you can do is what we did before. So let's look at if we have a giant manifest that's for an entire collection of images and we want to share just a link. I'll get an attempt. Kara, was your issue that you couldn't get to it, or was it just you had a giant file that was not loading? Oh, it's loading. It's just taking a really long time. So one thing you can do here is we can create a new manifest URL like we did showing a detail. So let's assume that we wanted to look at this kind of cool snake. We could do this, and then, oh gosh, one of these is Mirador. Maybe it's not. Why is it not letting me add it? Oh. Suda got it. So what was your problem? Do you want to unmute and tell us?
Sure, it wouldn't, that item wouldn't, get added to the Murder viewer.
Mm-hmm.
It just kept saying like, had a problem loading this item.
But then you tried
And
again and it
then,
did it?
yeah, I tried like 4 or 5 times, and after, Cassie said she tried it, I tried again and it worked.
It worked. Okay. So
Yeah.
some things are kind of beyond our control. It is tricky with some of the manuscripts. They're just enormous. There are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images. The other thing with these aggregators, so Biblissima is an amazing resource, but because it's aggregating resources from all different institutions, every once in a while, one of the institutions will be having a problem, and this is how we find out about it.
Thank you.
Okay. Is everyone else doing good? Let's look for my favorite. Okay. That's what. Oh, she's been through it.
Caitlin, would it be possible to recap if you've got, as Cara has, a manifest that's linked at an item level? Could you just recap how you would get that to the page to pull in a page level to Mirador again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's find Kara's, sorry. The link was to the whole item, not the page. Kara, can I ask what you searched for? And let's see if we can find it in Biblissima.
I've just added the link
Serpent.
to the chat, Caitlin, just to save
Great.
you searching. Yeah.
Great. Okay, and let's find. Okay. So this is 983 pages. Kara, do we know which page had the serpent on it? So even if you, so there's a few ways you can do this. So one is you can import the whole item, and then you can flip. Oh, that's a cool serpent. I don't know if that was the one you were looking for, Kara. But you can click through all of them and view them here if you want to import the whole manifest. The other thing you can do, it can be, yeah, it's a great one. So you can click through all of these. If it's giant, and the initial, so I don't know, let's find one here. No, 900, just sorry. Okay. Okay, so Biblissima is not bringing you. Cassie, were you able to do this easily?
So there seems to be, sorry, I've not actually attempted this one, but there seems to be, if you go back to the page, sorry, I'll do it myself and see if I can share what it was I was doing. Okay. Bear with me a moment.
No problem.
Just try and find the same item that you're looking at.
Oh, let me send you that.
Okay. So if I zoom in, does that change?
No,
Yeah.
Biblissa is making it difficult.
They really are, aren't they? So see if that one.
Typically, with a different viewer, and this is probably a shortcoming of Biblissima's implementation, is if you were using Universal Viewer here, the manifest would, the URL would change as you were zooming in, and it would be very easy for you to port that somewhere else, like we did the Zoom earlier. You can kind of hack making your own manifest by going into the Universal Viewer, zooming in, and then sharing that URL out to show a specific part. This is kind of a pain in the neck because some of these are so giant. That's okay.
Sorry, I'm going to have to admit defeat on this one.
That's okay. We'll work back. So did anyone have two images in Mirador that they want to show? Someone be brave. Wow. Let's see if I can grab another serpent then. How do we zoom out in Mirador? Okay, let's take a look. So if you, I'm using a mouse, so if I left click, I zoom in, you can exit. Usually you will eventually, why is it doing this to me? So I'm using mouse controls. So Sudha, are you using a touchpad, a trackpad, or a mouse?
My trackpad.
Okay, so if you do 2 fingers up on your trackpad, will it zoom out for you? Mine does 2 fingers down to
No.
zoom and 2 fingers up to zoom out.
No, it's not really responding. It's zoomed in all the way,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
And
trying
it's
to
stuck on
zoom
you?
out. Yeah.
I don't know. Are you on a PC? Pinch zoom
Yes.
works. Okay, so Nate's saying pinch zoom works in Mirador for him on a trackpad.
Okay.
Some of this is unfortunately
Can I just try?
Yeah,
Just reload the image?
you can
Is
reload
that
the
even
image.
possible?
Yeah.
Okay, I will try that.
So the other thing worth mentioning in Mirador is that for these giant multi-page manifests, you can look at every page in a gallery view. This is helpful if you have, 50 pages. If you have 1,000 pages, you still might not want to look at all of them at once. But if we look here, let's see, here's 2 cool serpents. And let's see if we can find another one here. Not a serpent or a bird? Neither. Okay, that's a serpent with a human head. It's a little frightening. So what other strange Mirador problems can we try and solve together? Unfortunately, the zoom is a user interface issue, and it depends on your operating system and what device you're using. So it looks like we have a whole bunch of different solutions here. Okay. So before we move on, or I offer you guys a quick break, does anyone want to either show us what they've done or ask any more questions about Mirador or comparing images? Nope, everyone's great. Serpents were popular. Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. So do you want to share a URL and we'll take a look?
I'm trying to figure out how.
You can
Share
share it.
my-
You should. Oh, okay. So if you go here, you can export the workspace. It's going to be big. I'm sorry, I should have told you that. So export the workspace, copy. Unfortunately, when you paste it, it's going to be too long. But you can save that for later and then import it later.
Okay.
So here,
So we just share that in the chat.
it's probably too big for the chat. It's going to be
Okay.
giant. The easiest thing if you want to share is probably just to share your screen momentarily.
Okay.
Here, I'll pause mine. Oh, awesome. Birds.
And
Beautiful.
all three are from the same book. All three are from the same book, different pages.
Yeah, they're fabulous. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
because we're working with a test version of Mirador on the site, none of this will be saved. So if you do want to come back to it and you want to show someone else, like I said before, on the left-hand side, the three dots, there's an import and export workspace function. You can export the workspace. All of it will be copied to your clipboard. And then the next time you open Mirador, if you want to come back to this, you can click on those three dots again, import workspace, and just paste it in. Okay, so we're at 1 o'clock. We are more than halfway through. Does anyone want a brief break, or do you guys want to push through? No strong feelings? Keep going. Okay. John said keep going. Rhiannon said keep going. We're going to keep going. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you some more interesting things that you can do. So we've worked with static images and comparing and zooming in and sharing them. But one of the really exciting things that you can do with IIIF resources is develop online exhibitions. So if you have lots of manuscripts or something that you're researching, you want to get topics from, or you want to get resources on one topic, there is a whole ecosystem of tools developed for storytelling with IIIF resources. So the one that I'm going to show you here, this is using an Italian tool called Stories with 3 eyes. And what they've done here is used paintings, manuscripts to develop a learning module. I'm going to show you another way to use storytelling for educational contexts. So IIIF has a training and education community group that meets regularly, and they're focused on how to use IIIF resources in mostly university level classes, but we have some people who are doing high school and secondary school applications too. So this is Canvas. You probably have had to spend time in Canvas before, but what they've done here is developed a learning module that students can click through. Yeah, Rhiannon, all these tools are linked and listed, and I'm going to send, at the very end, I'm going to give you all this stuff. So they're using the Exhibit app to help students walk through this image. So they'll just click through. They can add annotations here. And this is a really rich experience for students. So instead of giving someone a PDF, it allows them to roll through at their own pace. I'll show you one more example because these are usually pretty interesting to folks. Hold on. So this is Exhibit. This is another IIIF storytelling tool. This comes from Harvard's Slavery, Abolition, Emancipation, and Freedom Project, and Dorothy Berry made this. And I'll just show you. So this, within the narrative that they've written, they have embedded these exhibit stories that go through documents in their collection and provide context. So this is self-directed. No one would be watching this at this pace, but this video shows you what this looks like. And we're going to get to play around with exhibit a little bit. Okay. What we're going to end up doing, and I'm going to show you how to do all of this before you have to do it, is we're going to find a few manifest URLs from the list that maybe you've been running or things that you have in your scratch paper, and we're going to create a tour or a quiz. Hold on. So we're going to go to exhibit.so, and I will show you what this looks like. So I'll show you one of their samples. So this is something that they affectionately call scrollytelling. So instead of clicking through, a user would scroll down and it will take you through the resources and the annotations and zoom in. So exhibit will let you do something like this. It'll also let you do a quiz. So you can have questions in your presentation that people can answer. It'll mark them right or wrong as they move forward. And it'll also allow you to make some engaging presentations that go along with museum exhibits. So a virtual tour that goes along with a real life presentation. So I'll show you how we do this. So we're going to create an exhibit. So you can see a kiosk, a scroll, slides, or a quiz. I would say for our purposes here, either the scroll, the slides, or the quiz. We'll give it a title. Let's say my awesome presentation. I'm the author. Test. We'll make it public for now. This allow duplication button might sound odd, but the nice thing about allowing duplication and why this is really helpful is there are lots of people who are developing exhibit presentations that need to be translated into different languages. And if you have done it once, you would probably like to just duplicate it and then do your translation. I am not a robot, and I have read and agreed. Okay. So we're going to add an item. Let me grab a manifest URL that we have here. We'll grab one up here. Okay. Import here. Okay, so this is an important distinction here. We have imported the item. We have not added it to our story yet. So the way we do that is, let's say we want to say, this is a wedding dress in the Victoria and Albert Museum. Looks good to me. You can change the font and the color. Looks good. Okay, This is now the first part of our presentation. Now let's say I want to show off the beading. I'll add another one. Katniss. Intricate beading. Now let's say we want to go to another part. Oh. Here is someone wearing the dress. Great. We can preview this. So it'll start here. We'll click through. It'll tell people what we're looking at. Look at the beading. Here's a person wearing the dress. So this is not super sophisticated because we did it in, about 2 minutes, but this is how you can go through and add items. You're not limited to one manifest URL. You can upload as many manifest URLs as you want, but each time you want to include a view in your exhibit, you'll need to add it here on this path. And then once you're happy with it, you can share it using these URLs. Okay. Do we have specific questions about that? Or do you want to see me add some more manifests, or does everyone feel good to play around with that on their own? So Cassie sent the link, so it's exhibit.so. You'll go down here to create an exhibit, and then you can pick one of these. So I just did slides. You can do scroll. If you do a quiz, you'll have to put questions in, but that's a little fun. And you can try that out. Okay, I'll put the assignment back up on the screen in a minute. But do we have questions about how exhibit works? Okay, I'm going to leave you to it, and I will try and answer questions and put them up on the screen if it's helpful. But it would be great if someone could share out their URL when they're finished, and we'll take a look at it as a group. It's okay and encouraged if it's silly or even nonsensical. How's everyone doing? Okay, Cassie has one. We'll take a look at that. Okay. Oh. Okay, Cassie, where did your manifest come from?
So I used an aggregator. I used the Cultural Japan aggregator.
Okay,
So they're from different places, but they're coming via the API for Cultural Japan.
okay. So Cassie's test is some rabbits. Ooh,
Oh no.
why did that happen? Oh, we're better. Another rabbit, a watercolor rabbit. Look at that guy. He looks a little scary. Snoot. Not a real rabbit. Okay, does anyone else want to be brave and share their, oh, Abby picked an animal but cats. Okay, let's see. Cats. Cat crouching on the ledge of an artist atelier. A seated cat.
And I pulled mine from different like organizations. So
Okay,
I have one from Cultural Japan, but I also have a couple from the Leiden. I have one from the Leiden collection, a couple from Harvard.
oh yeah, the Schlesinger Library.
So
So cute. Okay, so it's pretty intuitive to make the exhibits. Does anyone else want to share one? Did anyone pick a different animal? No, when I did this training a while ago, I did dogs, so it does feel like it's a theme. But they're pretty intuitive. And this is one of many. So exhibit is there. It's the reason we do exhibit in the training is mostly because it's very simple to get started. And they do this hosted option that you can run on your own. But there are lots of different tools, and I'll give you a list of those later. So let's if no one else wants to share theirs, then I will move forward with the last little bit here, which is embedding a viewer. And I lost my speaker notes. We're not going to actually embed a viewer live. The reason being, and hold on just a sec. The reason being, I don't have a website for you to use, but I want to show you what the options are, because it is really helpful. So the viewers that we use today, Mirador and Universal Viewer, can easily be embedded into your website. So I'll show you just what that looks like. The first one here is an example in Canvas. So here, someone has embedded Mirador. They haven't done all of them, actually, because this looks like UV to me. Oh, no, that's Mirador. So in this example, someone has embedded a stories. So that's another one of these guided viewing tools within Canvas. They've also included a whole manuscript here using Mirador. And here's a Mirador plugin to look at an image. The benefit to this is pretty obvious. You could certainly upload an image. You could download this image and you could upload it to Canvas and it could be there as a static item. The benefit to putting Mirador in there is, one, you don't have to download it or host it. Two, the users are able to zoom in and explore it a little more deeply. And then the other interesting things here are that you can incorporate the metadata. It'll come along with the image. And here someone has included annotations. So you can also share annotations that you want your students or your viewers to see in Mirador. And here's an exhibit story that they've embedded as well. So just what you all did, you can share your exhibit within a website. This is a little more straightforward, but this is on the Vatican Library site. So they have, as you might imagine, tons of manuscripts in the Vatican Library. And here they have incorporated a IIIF viewer into the website so people can explore it within the context of the website. So all of this is pretty straightforward depending on what kind of website you're building it into. But most of the time, and let's look at Mirador here. Oh, look, show zoom controls. Sorry, Suda, we could have talked about that earlier. I had my universal viewer. Here it is. You can embed an image in an iframe. So whether you're using WordPress or you want to put it in Canvas, it's really a matter of just copying the iframe and then pasting it into your backend. But that's a capability that's available to you. Okay, so that's it for me talking at you about capabilities and then making you do things. Before I let you all go, I want to share just a couple tips and tricks that make this a little easier. One is Detect IIIF. This is a browser extension that was developed by Leander Siege, who is a great member of the IIIF community. It will detect if there are manifests or IIIF images on a web page. So you'll see here, I have it installed on my browser, and it can see all of the manifests that I have incorporated into this presentation. And then you can just copy the manifest URL here. And it does kind of the hard work for you. It's not 100%, but it's valuable and it's a great tool. The other thing I want to share is the IIIF Awesome List. So this is a list on GitHub of everything. So people asked about what are all of the tools that you can use? What are the viewers, things that I was referencing but not showing? All of those things are maintained and listed here by the IIIF community. So you'll see IIIF viewers. Here's a whole bunch of IIIF viewers that are available to you that you can access here. Image viewers, libraries, here's tools for cropping and downloading. Some of this may be things you're not interested in, but there's also great presentations and implementations and examples. And then if there's a subject that I didn't touch on today that you want to get more information on, I would direct you to the guides page on the IIIF website. So there's lots of resources that you can go through yourself. There's also recordings and trainings, and different tutorials and things that you can test out here. Okay. And if this wasn't enough and you are telling yourself, I want to know more about the IIIF authorization flow, or I want to know how to edit a manifest, or how do I make my own manifests, or how do I get this started at my institution, we run a 5-day training course. My colleague Glenn leads this. You can do it independently. All of the materials are open and available on the IIIF website, or you can do it in an organized class setting with other folks, with Glenn there as a resource. And it's a really excellent way to get started with more advanced topics in IIIF. I'd also like to point out community groups. So if any of this was particularly interesting to you, if you're interested in the educational and training functions, things like using IIIF in Canvas, we have a training and ed group. If you're in a museum or you're interested in working with maps, all of these community groups typically meet on a monthly basis and they are open. Anyone can attend, you can drop in and never come back. You can come every week and no one will ask you to do anything. They're all listed on our community calendar and the Zoom information is there, so you can drop in at any time. Sorry. And then my last plug for the consortium, well, I should say one more thing. We are having our annual conference in UCLA this year, the first full week of June. So it's happening June 4th through the 7th. If you are in California, if you're close to the LA area and you would like to attend, it is a great way for someone who's newly initiated to get up to speed in more advanced topics pretty quickly. And other ways to get involved that don't involve traveling are joining the call. So any of those community groups or a monthly community call are on the IIIF community calendar and they're open. We have a newsletter that I send out 10 times a year. I don't send it any more than that. So you're only committing to 10 emails in a calendar year. And the IIIF Slack. So there are 2,500 people in the IIIF Slack, and I can safely say that the people who are active in there are some of the most helpful and lovely people on the internet. If you have a question, there's no question too small or too simple. Someone will jump in and help you. And it's a great resource for building projects, getting started, and just talking to people, finding people who are doing the same things that you are. So there's a link there to get signed up. If you're not already in there, we would love to have you. And then before I open it up to any more questions, I just want to thank Cassie again for running the chat and copying and pasting and filling in when I was skipping over things or going too fast. And so thanks to Cassie. Before I let you all go, are there any other questions or things that you would like to know about? Either things we covered today or the community or anything else IIIF related? No, I'll give you a second just in case people are typing. No. Okay, well, it was a pleasure talking to all of you today. Thank you for coming. I encourage you to get involved, and we will probably run another one of these in the future. So if you have colleagues that would like to attend, please encourage them to sign up for the newsletter, and we'll get them signed up the next round. Okay, thank you all.